this quarter, and we already mentioned last week that we won't be running these meetings on a weekly basis in the spring quarter, because we'll be teaching our legal informatics class, but we may have sometimes some ad hoc meetings, so stay tuned. But today we have three very interesting presentations for you all. So we have Ray Gallo, who will talk about his leverage product. And then we have Shamir Alipai, who will talk about Simon Says, his website that uses speech recognition to transcribe audio and video files. And then we have Eric Chin, who will talk about how he used the data in our CodeX Techindex to show some trends in the early stage legal innovation community. So I'm really excited about the presentations today. We have an hour, so the speakers have about 20 minutes, and hopefully you can leave some time for discussion after your presentation. But before I turn it over to Ray, I wanted to see if anyone in the group has any kind of news to share, or any kind of requests from the group. Anyone? And if you're online, you have to unmute yourself so we can hear you, or use the chat function. By the way, can you all hear us? No? Yes. Ray, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
Great. Great. Okay.
And by the way, you'll have my form in 1 second.
Perfect. Okay. Well, if there are no questions or updates, then I will turn it over to you, Ray. Take it away.
Okay. So, assuming that not everyone has seen this before, just a very short summary of the leverage story. We started with a prototype in 2010 that was built for a consumer fraud class action that we couldn't certify. We had a class of about 5,000 folks who'd been misled by a for-profit culinary school, about a $45,000 education that got them an 11-hour job. Class certification wasn't available, and so the question arose as to what we can do to try and make it possible economically to pursue claims when they're too small to support the millions of dollars of work often required to win a case like that, and also make it manageable. You gotta get people, gather the claims, and you gotta have some way to manage it that works. So we built a prototype of today's system that would automate, not facilitate screening and signing and a lot of management functions, and that was able to get us a large settlement in that case, because even though we were going to lose on class certification, we had a credible threat to sign up half the class anyway, which also is more expensive for a defendant because they have to contend with individual damages and a lot of increased cost. So the evolution is that that tool enabled maybe $60 million worth of settlements on my cases, and has been used in some other cases. We developed and deployed a commercial version in 2014, which was still a single tenant version. We would do a full install with a unique single deploy for law firms that wanted to use it. And we had a handful of customers. It more recently has evolved into a more standard SaaS, a multi-tenant system. Today you can go to leverage.law and deploy a new website with all this functionality in, might take you 60 seconds if you can type fast. Of course, you've got to deal with content, but we've made it so you can import content from previous cases. And the essence of it is that it's an integrated platform that does the basic functionalities of SurveyMonkey, MailChimp, Blogger with a security function, Wunderlist for task management, and a lot of Gmail and MailChimp. And of course, we don't fully compete with any of those products in certain ways. In other ways, our technologies are better. Our survey functionality now has full question branching, so it should be possible. We haven't tried it yet to actually fully automate a plaintiff's law firms, at least general intake, even if they had multiple practice areas, because we've got it set up now where you can ask follow-up questions going down a decision tree in much the same way that a lawyer would do it normally. The big realization from our perspective is that, for one thing, entertainingly, one of our biggest revenue sources was a case where we got paid to take us out of the market because the plaintiffs' lawyers didn't want us selling our services to competing plaintiffs' lawyers. This is a case you've all heard about, so I won't mention it. The lawyers are we're all kind of friends in the high-end class action community, but that was kind of interesting. And a lot of things are beginning to open up. We've got people using leverage for FLSA cases, which are opt-in class actions. That's kind of what I thought would happen. We actually got some calls from Australia, which all their class actions are opt-in. So a tool like ours that enables you to manage that and communicate with the class makes a ton of sense. I think my synopsis when I pitch leverage is that we can have 1,000 clients and run multiple cases like that with the smallest staff. Me, an associate, a paralegal by ourselves could do that. I'm not that small anymore, but you can do that. It's manageable. We've got people using our system now to run some individual general small practices, but the key from our perspective is we're able to provide this really terrific service that feels like one-on-one service. So I suppose people know the emails they get from me periodically, however chatty they may be, are mail merged. But people feel good when they get an email where I say, hey, John, I want to let you know what happened in court yesterday. This is what happened. This is what it means. This is what's happening next. We'll keep you up to date. Have a great weekend. And I post video once a month on our secure system, and everybody gets to see that and see my bald head and decide whether they feel good about me or not. And I would say that the big breakthrough, the thing we feel best about at this point is that end users, just to say lawyers' clients, really seem to love it. If you go to actually my personal profile on avo.com, speaking of LegalTech, you can kind of see that the end users, at least the way we use it and the method that I suggest other lawyers use it, really love it. They got a small claim and they're getting what feels like, great service and a sort of a personal relationship. The biggest challenges we face, of course, are adoption. And, first and foremost, that's adoption by lawyers. I guess what we've probably run into is, our product solves a problem that other people, in many cases, haven't really thought about yet. And it is, we have still no competition, not really. There are many products that compete in some part. There are lots of intake products that have cropped up in the 4 years since we got outed by the ABA Journal. But they're basically just tools in the sense that they make it easier for people to run legal intake using a call center or paralegals or whatever people do. Make it easy to send a signature agreement by DocuSign. Ours is still the only one that actually fully automates that. On our system, if somebody answers our questions and gives programmed acceptable answers, they can finish filling out our forms and get a mail merged DocuSign. It's not DocuSign, it's their own product, agreement to sign. My signature gets affixed automatically and it goes out. So, there are pieces out there, but no true competitor, nothing that's truly automated yet. And I think lawyers, when they hear about it, they like it. We have great name recognition among the national class action community. They know about us, but they're lawyers, they're too busy a lot of times to want to do something new. And then there's the extent to which they're averse to what's really a new business model in some sense, and leans on using what I think are very clear civil procedure mechanisms namely Rule 20 of the federal rules, which is the permissive joinder statute, which makes pretty clear that cases like the ones I've developed leverage to use, where you've got a whole bunch of people with claims that have common elements, even if they aren't certifiable as a class action because common elements don't predominate, they still have common questions, they should be joined. But it is a new method, and so we've got business model or business method resistance as well as the usual lawyer tech resistance, which I actually think comes largely from the fact that lawyers are often so busy, whether they're productive or profitable or not, maybe isn't always the same issue, but so busy that they don't take a ton of time to think about how to apply new technologies or learn how to use them. There's also, part and parcel of our business model is a marketing challenge. To be effective with leverage, you've got to develop a way to effectively drive traffic to a website. We're slowly testing that out, and there is some degree of challenge, I think, with consumers because the defense bar, the insurance industry, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has done a pretty good job at making plaintiffs' lawyers look bad, and some plaintiffs' lawyers have done a good job at making plaintiffs' lawyers look bad. And so, I go out and I typically on video on the homepage of every website, I invite everybody. I say, look, please, we're consumer fraud lawyers. Don't buy anything important on the internet without, thinking about it and doing your homework. By all means, do your homework on us. We absolutely invite that. And I think that when people get there and they look at that and they listen to me and they decide that I sound like I'm competent and honest, we get a decent amount of push through. But getting people to click an ad from a lawyer for a lawsuit can be tricky. Obviously, the two key points that we've found can be effective are, one, if people really care about the issue. We've been doing some privacy cases. We just filed one against Google, you may have seen. People do care about that stuff, and that can motivate people. And of course, people can be motivated by money too. But we like to try and push more on the principle because it's usually not a ton of money in the cases that we're pursuing. That's kind of the nature of them. So the fallout of those two factors is that, because my product is entirely financed by and owned by me as a plaintiff's lawyer so far, we haven't chosen to take any funding. I'd like to think we could get some, but it's just simpler not to in a lot of ways. What we decided was our outside sales effort proved not particularly productive. The sales we get are people who've heard of us, know who we are, and call up. So what we're doing now is we've just kind of shifted all resources out of outbound sales. We're going to do some more inbound marketing. And we're going to take advantage of the fact that we have a captive, devoted customer in my own law firm. We have done a bunch of good and made a bunch of money using this model and this product. The product has continued to get better and better. It's now really a very mature product. And
Ray, are you planning to show us a little bit of the product, or? Oh,
well, I could certainly do that. Do we have time?
Well, we have about 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
So for a demo and questions, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what you prefer to do.
I'm happy to, if we think we've got time for it. Let's see. Shall I share a screen? Let's see if I can pick a screen here. There we go. Am I sharing? Can you see my screen? Oh, wait a minute.
Now we can see the screen.
How are we doing? You got it?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So look, this is a great little list. This is my own homepage, if you will. These are my sites. I have a lot of them, as you can see. It's kind of nice when you can deploy a new one in 30 seconds. Whoops. This is, let's go back. Whoa, hold on. So if you get into a site, these are all kind of most of these are privileged, but there's one here that I can show, which is, where is it? Here we go. So I'll show you the front end briefly, and then I'll show you the back end. So this is our basic template. It's missing a video. Typically, we put a big fat video right here. And that's the thing that seems to make the difference in sales. We've done very fancy versions, but they don't seem to make any difference. It seems to be the personal touch that people care about when they're hiring a lawyer. I can also show you, if we get into our demo site briefly, the basic configuration. In setup, you just go through and you can add a number of, you can set up the whole site pretty clearly. And if you
it wouldn't be a demo if there wasn't like,
the barking dog.
Barking dog in the background.
yeah, sorry about that.
This is
Yeah, I wasn't anticipating that. But perhaps more importantly, just the overview. I usually takes me half an hour to do a demo, but
yeah, no, this is it's okay, but so are you taking questions too? Can I?
yeah, absolutely.
So what's your your idea is to license the technology to other plaintiff firms?
So that's been happening.
And what's kind of the business? Is sort of subscription based or?
Yeah, well, actually, our current pricing model is, there's sort of two big value components. One is, automating screening so that you can screen 10,000 people and sign the 1,000 that you want. That's a big piece of the value. And what we do is we have a free version. It's, the first 24 clients or a year, for up to a year, or it's free. You can use it, knock yourselves out. And then more generally, when you're into the paid system, it's $24 currently per signed client one time, and then a pretty inexpensive charge of, I think it's maybe $1 a client per month. And if you're going to run 10,000 clients, we're obviously happy to talk about enterprise pricing. But what it winds up being is endlessly cheaper and easier than hiring a large number of paralegals to handle your 1,000 or 5,000 clients. Plus the other big benefit I mentioned before, which is clients wind up feeling like they have a relationship with the lead lawyer. And that results in a lot of goodwill. It's like doctors who never get sued no matter how badly they mess up because they've cultivated a good bedside manner. If I take the time to communicate with people, they really care. And it's easy for me to make that time when that time is being magnified over a very large number of clients. So everybody winds up better off. It works.
Yeah. I want to see, does anyone else have a question for Ray?
Put it out there on chat.
Anyone online? And you can also, if you're online, you can also use the chat function to ask a question.
Ray, it's Bruce Gahan. Do you have a sense of how much faster a class action gets certified and resolved using leverage?
So the beauty of leverage is you don't need to certify a class at all. One of the problems with the class action model from the plaintiff's perspective is you spend usually a year or two doing discovery, leading up to a hearing on your class certification motion. Then maybe you lose and you're nowhere. Whereas if you'd signed everybody up who wanted to on leverage, you'd still have a case. Even if you win on class certification, that's immediately appealable, which is a reasonable policy. No reason to make a defendant try that case if its certification is going to be undone on appeal. But then maybe you're 2 years on appeal, so then maybe you're 4 years in before you know what the Court of Appeals decision is, and maybe they decertify, and you go back to rehearing, et cetera. My method is just forget that. Let's sign up the people who actually care about their claims, and we'll take a mass joinder approach. California law now clearly allows it, and I think federal law will pretty clearly allow it here soon. And, we can get straight to the heart of the matter. Let's pick some representative cases and figure out whether they have value or not. Did something illegal happen? Does the defendant have a defense as to Johnny or people in Johnny's category? It's kind of what we call a bellwether approach, really. There's a threat that people could have to do a lot of discovery. If I have to provide interrogatory responses for 1,000 people, that could be a bunch of work. But we've now essentially automated that. We'll have to do the first 50, but then we know what the answers are. Our system, our electronic signature system, can be deployed for any supplemental documents we need to get signed, and the results of a multiple choice thing can get mail merged, and if somebody needs to click other, then they get a phone call. But otherwise, if some defendant wants to make me do discovery for 50,000 clients, and we're going to have that case, it's a mistake because I can generate it and they're not going to read it.
Right. Okay, any other questions for Ray?
Chris Carr has a question.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah.
Did he?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, thanks, Ray. Cool platform. I'm wondering, of all the people out there in e-commerce that have clicked I agree, and by doing so, they've waived their right to class action, they've agreed to arbitration, and they're pretty much screwed on their damage clauses too, in terms of what they can recover. So many of those seem to be a good pool of people for mass litigation as opposed to a class action. Does your platform, have you or the lawyers you work with been intaking those types of cases so that everybody who's angry at Comcast, for example, can come to you? Or are those just not worth it to pursue?
Okay, so perfect example. So I just filed both a class action against Comcast in California, which has got some new law that may let us get around the arbitration agreements, but also made 25 demands on Comcast. These all relate to alleged violations of the Cable Act. Comcast is tracking what we watch and using it to serve advertisements, and they say they're doing it without any links, any personal identification links, which of course is impossible, as anyone who's ever written a line of code knows. There may be a third linking database, but they've got the data someplace. And the fallout is, look, it's possible to pursue these arbitrations en masse, and Comcast may be the one where I first demand 1,000 separate individual arbitrations. These clauses prevent consolidation. They won't let you bring all these cases together. You got to do one at a time. Defendants did that to make it super expensive. The irony is, under these clauses in applicable consumer law, they've got to pay for the arbitration. So let's say I've got a $1,000 claim. It's going to cost them $3,000 to pay the arbitrator. What are they going to do? I mean, we'll see. The problem is that arbitration is a biased forum. You know, if you're the American Arbitration Association, you know the way you have business is when Comcast chooses to say that you are the mandatory forum. If you find for the plaintiff too often, you're going to stop doing that. So how does that fall out? We're trying to pick cases where we think even an arbitrator with a big fat economic bias against you is still going to have to say, okay, I'll look like I'm not being honest if I don't find for the plaintiff here. But, you know, who was a famous Supreme Court justice who said, you know, give me a set of facts, tell me what theory you want me to decide it under, and I can decide it either way. So, you know, it's a real issue. And I tell people, look, I bat 850 at trial. I've been pretty successful. I bat 500 at arbitration. Same lawyer, same judgment, same preparation. That 350 points, I think, is just biased. I mean, I walked out of all those arbitrations thinking, okay, I wasn't crushing, but I won. And I didn't, right? So that's a problem and a topic for another day. I think I have some ideas.
On that note, Ray, we have to wrap it up here and turn it over to our next speaker. But thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Can you tell us if people had follow-up question, what's a good way to reach you?
Best way is, I guess, email, rgallo@gallo.law. My phone number is 415-257-8800, extension 11.
Okay. All right, Ray. Thank you so much again. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thanks. All right, so let's turn it over to Shamir now, CEO and founder of Simon Says.
Hi,
Shamir,
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm trying to turn on my video, but I need to...
Let me see, we'll have to first, give me 1 second.
Yeah, I think
We have to ask you to turn on the video.
Okay.
There you are, great.
Oh, awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Awesome, sounds good. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to Layla for introducing the Roland and for the invite, and Susan for organizing this. I appreciate it. As you mentioned, I am the CEO and founder of Simon Says. Our mission is to help people connect with meaningful dialogue. And what that really means is I come from a media production background. I started my career at the BBC. I spent quite a bit of time in the Middle East, kind of in a post 9/11 context, doing documentaries, nonfiction content from the kind of broader Muslim world. They're in the act of creating content. There's just so much mundane and tedious aspects that were really draining on the creative components, on telling important stories, on like really finding the key components of the meaningful dialogue in interviews, for example. And I really wanted to solve that. At the core, the problem we're tackling is transcription. Transcription is slow, it's expensive, it's aggravating. If you need to get an interview transcribed, you really have two choices. One, you can outsource it, and it's expensive, it's less slow, there'll oftentimes be errors, or you can do it yourself. And it's really, really frustrating, besides it being expensive on your time. Within the context of law firms, oftentimes you have to do it internally because of the sensitivity of the material and for confidentiality and privacy. And so, you're left with sometimes junior lawyers, mid-level lawyers who are spending really expensive time to do so. I thought, hey, there must be a better way with transcription. And so I started Simon Says. It really started out as a test. I needed to, my career has moved to technology over the last 6-7 years. And I had to put on my production hat kind of late 2016, I had recorded a number of interviews. I needed to get it transcribed. I looked online, I couldn't believe that it was still a painful, expensive problem. And I said, what if we apply speech recognition to this? And that thought led to a kind of crude website initially that got shared. And long story short, Simon Says was born. And Simon Says, in the first kind of product, is a website that swiftly transcribes files in a fraction of the usual time and costs. What I came to realize was, as much as this is a problem within a media production context, the site got shared much more broadly with different people in different industries. And I started to realize that actually the legal community started using Simon Says, and I sought to really understand why and how they were using Simon Says. I've come to realize that 50% of lawyers do not want their clients recorded and transcribed, but the other 50% in certain scenarios do, and it's really that group that Simon Says is being used in that context. And so, oftentimes it's transcribing a deposition as kind of the basis of a brief or for trial preparation. Interestingly, IP lawyers are using Simon Says because it's machine transcription. Humans never touch it. They oftentimes are recording their clients, their inventor clients, using audio and video recording. And they need that transcribed because that forms the basis for a patent application. And obviously, if it was external, like human transcriptionists, external human transcriptionists, the kind of invention is quite secret and confidential. So that doesn't work, but in a machine transcription, it works really, really well. They can go through oftentimes really technical solution and annotated bookmark it, shared within teams. This is being used with in law schools, within an academia or research context. A couple of days ago, a student who was writing her dissertation asked whether this would be, for example, useful to transcribe the Ninth District Court's court recordings. And then the next one is we have a couple customers who have a human transcriptionist business and have contracts with cities to make court transcripts of that city available as a public record. They're mandated to make to have those records available to the public. They're actually using Simon Says now to do a first pass on court recordings, and then to have a human transcriptionist correct it. And finally, we're seeing some experimentation on quote unquote dark audio, dark archives, which is basically audio which is unusable in the sense that you can't do anything with it until you turn it into text. And people are experimenting with running data analysis on bodies of court recordings, for example, or other archives that they may have or want to explore. How it works. At the core, our initial product is a website. As a user, you can sign up. It's a self-service website. You upload your audio video file either through a local uploader. You can connect to Dropbox, Google Drive. The first thing we do is turn that audio into text. Using speech recognition, we tap into a number of publicly available speech APIs. We try to make a decision when best to use which. And then we apply two more kind of AI components to it. One of them we're really proud of. We've built an auto punctuation engine for a number of languages. And really what this is a Python script or software that has learned, quote unquote, the grammar, punctuation for specific languages, and then applies it to, once the speech recognition has done its job, to the text, to punctuate it, to capitalize, to insert commas and periods. And then for a number of languages, we run diarization, and diarization is really speaker separation. So, the text will be split up into rows where it says female 1 or male 2, and just separate between speakers and gender. This is a really hard problem to get right. Speech recognition, we feel like we're almost there. The user feedback is sometimes, that this is close to perfect. I typically see upwards of 85 to 95%, but I'm always surprised when someone's like, this is incredibly almost close to perfect, and it's amazing to see the progression there. But on speaker separation, I would still consider it a beta. It's hard to solve and analyze people's voices and figure out, is this the same speaker? Or is it a different speaker? But we're working on that. Then once you have the speech recognition, auto punctuation, and speaker separation, we then present you the results in a Google Docs-like tool, so that you can make any edits and assign names, for example, to the speaker labels. Speech recognition, as I said, is not perfect right now. It's getting close. But we want to make it as simple and easy for you to make corrections. So some really savvy tools, you can play back at a faster speed, make some changes, and then and go from there. Our goal is really get you as accurate as possible, a transcript, and get you back to doing that meaningful work. We wrap it in a thoughtful design. We have added other features since, like annotation. Oftentimes, especially in the context that I've mentioned, like law or production, you're like, people want to dig deeper on a point that the interviewee mentioned. They want to make bookmarks for referencing later on, or they want to share it within Teams. And then they can export it to the usuals, Microsoft Word, Excel. We have a number of integrations, but they can also integrate it into a kind of their own customized workflow. Website, as I said, very simple, straightforward. Upload any audio video file. Our system calculates the length of that file in time, and then we charge at the kind of most optimal price at 7 cents a minute. And then you can transcribe, edit, annotate, and export. That website was the self-service website was our first product. And then we started getting requests from, say, larger customers, like mid-sized customers saying, hey, we would love this in an API form. And we are doing that now. And increasingly larger customers, and especially when you think about it in the context of law, legal, finance, medicine, all who do transcription. Transcription is reportedly a $14 billion industry. They have very sensitive material, and so we've created a way to do it on-premise. And on-premise means either literally on-premise on their own servers and systems, or in their own private cloud. It's obviously much more expensive for customers, so it has to make sense. But that is the most secure option if that's desirable for a customer. Business model, for the website, it's pay as you go. There's subscription plans that bring down the price. We also have tried some growth where customers invite colleagues and both get some free credits. This is a team. As I said, I started this to solve a kind of problem for myself, an itch I had to scratch, and then kind of has grown from there and really brought in teams who are experts in like speech recognition or understood punctuation and auto punctuation. I'm really, really proud of the kind of work we've done to really grow this in a self-funded context. Milestones started in November 2016, really moved to an MVP, went through a private beta in April with one language, really started adding more languages from there. We had a big customer come to us in September 2017 saying, we really want to use this, but we need these type of team sharing permissions and features. So we built that for them. And then I feel like 2017 was very much focused on building the product. I look back and I'm like, can't believe that with the customers we had, we were able to get to, we were able to kind of maintain the momentum. There was a lot of things to build, but I feel like we hit product market fit January of this year, and it's just grown really, really quickly from there. We're now transcribing in 90 languages. The kind of key challenges I think about are accuracy. And that's the only thing any customer really cares about is accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. With our specific use case that we're talking about within law, within legal, one of the challenges of transcribing court recordings is the use of omnidirectional microphones. So directional microphones, ideally that like lapel microphones are best. Clear, crisp, clean audio leads to the best accuracy. So the higher the audio fidelity, the more accurate the speech recognition will be. And so the challenge in courts is that it's an omnidirectional mic and number of people are speaking oftentimes on top of each other. And so it can be a challenge there. Non-native accents also add challenges. So if you have an Italian accented person speaking English, that will lead to less accuracy. And then I see a lot of customers transcribing phone call meetings. And to those ends, one of the issues with phone calls is phone calls recording are at 8 kilohertz, really poor audio quality. And they're recorded in mono. And so we've actually just about to let you know a new product we're testing out in beta called Simon Calls. It's really to control the audio quality, which will lead to increased accuracy. So through the service, the new product we're about to launch, you'll be able to make a call, record the call, and transcribe the call all seamlessly. All you need to do is put in your phone number, the person you're trying to call, and it will lead to, in our test, it leads to dramatically higher accuracy of transcription. As I said, like transcribing phone calls, meetings, interviews is a really, really big use case for us. Next steps, we're continuing to focus on growth. Obviously on the product side, I've mentioned that, but growth is kind of a main focus of 2018. Looking at what that means, we've been self-service up till now. There's definitely things we can do on building out the sales channels, but we're also looking at partnerships, potentially resellers to sell our service who already are doing, say, IT work for law firms or within the law community to potentially integrate or add this as a product within their offering. So we're exploring what that means for us. The asks to the group is, hey, we're looking for beta testers for Simon Calls. If you're interested, let us know. And growth, if you think that there are ways we should think about getting Simon Calls or Simon Says into the hands of relevant law firms or customers or resellers, please let us know. I'm going to show you, let me see if I can.
And we're very much a little bit under time pressure now.
Okay.
Actually, we wanted to do a
just
quick demo, and then maybe people
Yeah.
can then, if they have follow-up questions, maybe they can email you directly then.
Yeah.
But if you wanted, did you want to show us that how it works?
I'll show it very quickly. It's actually like super simple. Cool. You can see this?
Yeah.
Yep, cool. So the homepage, you sign in, it should look like this. You get a dashboard, go to new project. You would just drag file in, it quickly uploads. Once it does that, it would look like this when it's uploaded. You would hit the transcribe button up here, pay, and then out would come the transcript. And as I said, there's a number of features here. You can play, you can jump around in the transcript, you can make changes. Yeah, and then when you're ready, you can export into a whole bunch of different formats. So yeah, that's a quick demo. And as I said, there's like annotation, bookmark options, things like that.
What's the website address?
It's simonsays.ai.
simonsays.ai. Great. Well, Shamir, thank you so much. This is very cool. Thank you. We're running a little bit out of time, so what's a good way to reach you, Shamir, if anyone?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat,
questions?
but it's Shamir at simonsays.ai.
Great. Thank you so much, Shamir.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it's been good. So, all right. So next we have Eric, who will tell us about his research on the data from the. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Hi everyone.
Good. Where are you joining us from now?
From Melbourne. So it's
Melbourne.
we are turning up the sunrise at 8:15, about 8:15 here. So.
Oh, okay, good.
Cool.
We don't feel too bad about that. It's not like.
Okay.
All right. So Eric, using our CodeX Techindex data to do a little bit of research on the early stage legal innovation ecosystem. So we're excited to hear from you what you found.
Cool. Likewise. Happy to share this with you. Thank you again for having me today for this week's CodeX meeting to present my paper on the global legal tech ecosystem. The paper is a culmination, as Roland has foreshadowed, of research I've done into CodeX Techindex, all 790 legal tech entries as of February 2018, and cross-reference that information with Crunchbase and index.co. And so what came out of it was 1,768 lines of data on Excel, essentially exploring the global legal tech ecosystem. And I'm very happy to share a snapshot of the report with you today. Now, just a quick background about me to help you contextualize how I see the legal industry. I'm a strategy consultant that has worked in the professions for the last 9 years. And over the course of that last 9 years, I was previously with a strategy firm called Beaton when I coined the phrase new law to describe alternative legal service providers like EXIM and LPO companies. And a large portion of my work in the legal industry is with law firms, legal tech firms, listed law firms, buyers of legal services, and the big four accounting firms in strategy, M&A, Asia, competitive analysis, and market analysis. And just like what Ray has shared earlier, the main strategic issue that legal tech firms are facing now really is on adoption. So over the last 9 years, I've seen a strategic agenda in law firm boardrooms changing from firstly consolidation, secondly globalization, which of course includes the rise of Asia, thirdly the re-entry of the big four accounting firms, and fourth and finally in recent years the rise of legal tech and new law firms. It is this fourth wave of change in the industry that has inspired this paper. I was asked a lot last year in my work with law firms and corporate legal departments to help analyze the legal tech market. The world map is just a snapshot of the cities in which the clients I've worked with are based. I'm based out of Australia. And I also shared thought leadership papers and reports with legal media and legal publications. So in preparing for this paper, the questions I wanted to answer were, firstly, who are the legal tech firms? Secondly, where are the legal tech firms based? Thirdly, what corporate activities have these legal tech firms reported from a funding perspective to M&A perspective? Fourthly, who are investing in legal tech? And fifth and finally, which segments of the legal tech market has attracted the most money and seen the most corporate activity? So to answer these questions, I went through all 790 legal tech entries and cross-referenced that with Crunchbase and Index.co. Before we start, I think it's important to take a step back and understand the legal tech ecosystem. It is an ecosystem driven by buyers and sellers of legal tech solutions, and it's made up of 8 major categories of stakeholders. And this report focuses primarily on legal tech firms. And there are numbers thrown around as well about the size of the legal tech market. Here's one by Catalyst, a venture capital firm that has invested in Ross Intelligence. They've estimated the legal tech market is a $16 billion market, selling to both law firms and corporate legal departments. Largest areas to spend include enterprise legal management, contract management, and e-discovery. Of course, this is looking primarily at the corporate legal market alone and does not include consumer legal market, which in my view will expand the size of the legal tech market if you incorporate that. And so my journey begins here at Stanford. There were 790 legal tech entries at the end of February 2018. I just checked today, there are 796 now, so it's increasing.
Excellent. It's a lot.
Yeah. So after cross-referencing that and analyzing those entries, I ended up with 692 verified legal tech firms. The reason I've ended up with 692 is because I culled the list due to, firstly, double entry. Secondly, law firms were also removed from my analysis. And thirdly, incubation funds were also removed from my analysis. Here's the breakdown of the 692 by segment. By far the largest is legal document automation, 184, followed by marketplace with 153, and then practice management, 138. Now, this may come as a surprise to you, certainly to me, when you look at the year founded of each of those legal tech entries. The first CodeX legal tech firm was in fact founded in 1929. That was Bloomberg BNA's predecessor company, the Bureau of National Affairs. What this chart is really telling me is that 2010 marks the tipping point of legal tech startup as more and more legal tech firms were founded. And the reason I say it's a tipping point, it's because 84% of CodeX's legal tech firms were established from 2010 onwards.
What? Say it again. Can you repeat that?
84% of CodeX. Sure. 84% of CodeX's legal tech firms were established from 2010 onwards.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So then the next question is, which countries are pumping out these legal tech firms? The spheres that are appearing represent the relative size of the legal tech population in each country. Unsurprisingly, the US is home to the most number of legal tech firms with 460. Followed by Canada with 52, the UK with 35, Germany with 15, and to round out the top 5, where I'm presenting from, Australia with 13. And so let's explore what other data uncovered in this research. Thanks to Crunchbase and Index.co, I was able to also trace the type of funding deals recorded by the legal tech firms, all the way from angel investment to M&A in a startup's typical financing life cycle. And what I found is out of the 692 legal tech firms, 200 have raised $2.5 billion from 419 funding rounds. And the segmentation breakdowns reveals legal practice management received the most money with $897 million, followed by legal document automation with $772 million and e-discovery with $313 million. I also found 436 angel investors, venture capitalists, PE firms, incubation funds, and government funds. And I'll share a snapshot of that too. Now, here's a yearly breakdown of those funding deals. What this is telling us is funding for CodeX LegalTech firms peaked in 2015 with $624 million raised. The number of funding deals, however, peaked in 2014 with 76. This is probably not a surprise to you, but the single largest funding deals recorded by a legal tech firm and CodeX was DocuSign with $233 million in a Series F funding round, followed by LegalZoom with $200 million in a secondary market funding round. And unsurprisingly as well, they were the firms that raised the most money. DocuSign ended up raising $550 million. LegalZoom raised a total of $311 million. So in following the money, here's a geographic breakdown of where the legal tech firms have raised funds. Unsurprisingly as well, the US has seen the most capital raising with $2.1 billion, followed by the UK with $249 million, and then Australia with $36 million, Canada with $34 million, and finally, to round the top five, Germany with $24 million. Some of you might observe this. This actually matched somewhat with the population of the legal tech firms in those countries. As I've shown in my previous slide, the top five countries with the most legal tech population were the US, Canada, UK, Germany, and Australia. So let's have a look at who are the investors putting money into legal tech. The biggest investors by funding deals, number of funding deals, were Y Combinator, which participated in 13, followed by Ignition Partners with 10, and SV Angel and 500 Startups sort of tied with 8, and that's the amount funding they've participated in. Note that most of the funding deals are participated by multiple investors. So a breakdown of the financial contribution by investors is not available. And that's a breakdown I've got. And then when you look at the largest investors by amount of funding participated, Iconic Capital participated in $358 million worth of funding, followed by Sense Capital with $318 million and Dell Technologies Capital with $278 million. And that's the number of funding deals participated by the investors. So another finding from the research is this. 44 legal tech firms from 7 segments of the legal tech market recorded 111 M&A deals. The most corporately active segment is legal research. This is, however, because of listed companies like Thomson Reuters and LexisNexis, who are on CodeX as well. And here's a yearly breakdown of those deals. M&A is picking up for this segment of the market as it gathers momentum. The biggest acquirers, as I've mentioned, were Thomson Reuters with 31 deals and LexisNexis with 29. And a far third, DocuSign sealed 4 deals in the timeline of this research. And here is a breakdown by segment. So again, in sort of breaking down by geography, of the 111 deals, the US dominates again with 104, followed by the UK with only 3, and the rest in Spain, Netherlands, Italy, and Australia. And finally, just to conclude and recap, the snapshot of my report from our world tour of the legal tech market, we firstly saw the breakdown of CodeX legal tech population by country, and then legal tech funding by country, followed by M&A by country. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share snapshots of the report with you. Would love to hear your thoughts and questions. Call to actions for me, really would love to hear from your audience if anyone is interested in the report. Also, if you have any legal tech contacts across Asia, I'd love to meet them. What I found in this exercise that Asia has a thriving startup scene, but information on this region is quite thin. Definitely would love to find and collaborate and explore collaboration opportunities with everyone. My contact details is on the screen. Feel free to drop me an email, a tweet, or a LinkedIn request. I also want to thank the great work that you guys are doing at CodeX. This report is not possible without the Techindex initiative and your ability to cultivate and nurture this community.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. You're very kind. Thinking about sort of like, different ways to improve that resource, but it's great to see that you've made such great use of it, and I've learned a lot from your presentation. It's really very interesting. Do folks in the group have any questions for Eric?
Yeah, Eric, it's Bruce Cahan. I love the report. I love the geospatial aspects of the report, and I'd like to read it. So I don't know if you can send it to us, or we should contact you at your email to see it. And in terms of you note the sort of spotty coverage, let's say, of our data. I wonder what statistically you could find regarding just the U.S. market, since that's where we have the most data. What would you advise in terms of a legal tech startup in the U.S.? How would they price the rounds, and what's your sense of the health of the venture money or the early money for our mature market? So take maybe a next step from the report of diagnosing how this market would continue to grow, because we've seen a little bit of a fall off. What, as the clinician of this data, you would suggest?
That's a really good question. I am still in the process of finishing the analysis. One of the things I'm doing at the moment is to look at the different segments within the market, whether it's legal practice management, legal document automation. What was the year founded of those startups, versus at which point did they have their first funding round and second funding round, et cetera, to kind of track that. We might be able to create some insights around, what are the different types of legal tech firms in those different segments, and how many years in was the average before they have their first funding round, and so on and so forth. Yeah,
because I think certainly the folks who come to CodeX to present, it would be fascinating for them to see this venture money for dummies approach. Yep. Based on our own continuing experience, that's one, and second, and I wouldn't ever presume with Roland and Susan here, but this would be a fascinating presentation at Future Law.
Yeah, I think that we
just
should think about
level set kind of this is where we are.
Yeah, we should talk about that. I don't know what are you doing on April 5th?
In any time zone.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Does anyone else have a question for Eric while we have him? Folks online? Anyone? No, then.
Eric, do you know?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to check in on whether there's any data on profitability and growth rates and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately not, because I'm depending on sort of Crunchbase and Index.co. A lot of what you're tracking is really just funding rounds and corporate activity. So from an M&A perspective,
maybe time for some survey work. Maybe, of course, whether people want to actually share that is going to come into question, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be great using the platform to kind of do that, to kind of get the legal tech firms to share maybe not actual numbers, but round numbers as to from $1 to $2 million, or et cetera, and see what's the population distribution in terms of profitability and cost, et cetera. I think that'd be really interesting insight.
Great. All right, so we're pretty much at the end of our time. Thank you again, Eric, and all our speakers.
Thanks.
I think this was a great session to conclude our weekly meetings for this quarter. And please stay tuned. We'll send out announcements if we have anything coming up. And come to Future Law,
Yeah.
April 5th.
See everyone at Future Law.
See everyone.
All right.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you all.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool.
You're logging out, Susan?